Hello, my friends. Welcome to this yoga flow. It's for strength and flexibility. Let's come laying down on our back, relax, and draw the knees into your chest. Apanasana pose. Let everything go. Come to peace and rest. Come into this present moment, letting go whatever was, what will be, and just be here now. Relax your face and your shoulders. And then come and get some hip mobility going. And we make circles with our hands on our knees, on our hips. Change the direction, make big circles. So it feels comfortable for you. Start slow. Maybe again in the other direction. And then if your dog is not in the way, place your feet on the floor and then lift it up. Now you can come back into Apanasana or in Halasana like I'm doing here now, flow pose. And I really like this pose. It helps me to get any kinks out of my back and really stretches good my hamstrings. So back pain that I have, this pose always helps me. Now again, come out of the pose, come back into Apanasana, drawing in the knees into your chest. That feels better. Now I'm placing my toes on the floor, which gives me a good stretch on the top of my foot. And I really like to start my practice with this Halasana pose. It helps me to change my view on things and helps me to release any kind of tensions. So breathe deeply. Try to straighten your legs just a little bit more if you can. Keep on breathing, long, deep breaths. And then if you're ready, you can lift your legs up into a shoulder stand. If you don't like that, keep your hip on the floor and just lift your legs. Now I like to make some circles of the ankles. Loosen up my ankles. You can also practice legs up the wall where you are having your feet against the wall lifted. It gives you the same effect. And then slowly come down with your hips. Now I have to scoot back a little bit. Take your time coming out of the pose. And then let's come into a fish pose. So legs straight out in front of you, hands underneath your bottom, and just stay on your elbows, really engaging your core. And you can have also, you don't have to throw back your neck so much if that is not comfortable for you. Just breathe very deeply into your chest. Opening up your heart, and it's a good counter pose for the plow and the shoulder stand. Breathing deeply. And come out of the pose. And windshield wipe your legs from side to side. Just releasing any kind of tensions from your back. Relax your face, your shoulders. Only the legs are swiping left and right in your own pace. And then draw on the knees one more time into your chest. You can sway from side to side if that feels good for you. And then maybe roll up. Now I'm going to put my hair up. Take your time, whatever you need. Maybe you need to take your socks off or anything. And come into a standing position. Lift up your arms straight up. Exhale, hands to your side. Again, lift, inhale, lift up your chest. Exhale, hands to your side. Again, lift up your arms and then forward fold. Slowly bend your knees at the first time. Preparation pose, and then step back into a plank, putting down your knees, chest, chin, and sliding through into a little cobra pose. Draw yourself back through a child's pose and then into your first downward facing dog. Just warming up your body here. Walk your dog. Bend your knees one at a time, or bend both knees at the same time and really find length in your back. Really push through your arms, your fingertips, and become stationary again. Breathe. Then look forward, press all your weight into your arms, and then step forward, straight back, and then forward fold. Inhale, lift up your arms all the way straight up, and hands to your side. Again, inhale, big inhale, lift up your chest upward, and exhale, forward fold, bending your knees. Preparation pose, and then step back into a nice big plank, and then chaturanga or knees, chest, chin. Come into cobra or upward facing dog. Back through child's pose, and then into a downward facing dog. I really like this because it helps my back. You can always keep on doing this, or you can always also skip the child's pose in between, however you like your practice to be. Draw on your belly and breathing deeply. Look forward, place all the weight into your hands. Step forward, preparation pose, forward fold. Lift up your arms all the way up. Inhale, exhale, hands to your side. Again, inhale, big inhale. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, preparation pose, straight back. Step back into a nice plank pose. Chaturanga, hold, and then come into upward facing dog. Back to a child's pose, and into a downward facing dog. Draw on your belly and breathe. Calming your breath. And then put your weight all the way into your arms. Step forward, straight back, forward fold. Inhale, lift up your arms all the way up and hands to your side. Breathe, and then come into a chair pose, deep and low, a little bit deeper than you think you can, and then forward fold from here. Preparation pose, and step back into plank, chaturanga, upward facing dog or cobra, back into a child's pose, and then into downward facing dog. We don't take rest here. Step forward with your right leg. Place your left knee down on the floor. Come into a low lunge, having your hands on your hips. Stay there or lift the hands up towards the sky. Breathe. Make sure both hips are leveled, facing forward. And then I'm going to grab my left wrist and come into a side stretch here. This really increases the hip stretch. And then place your hands down on the floor, step back, plank, move through chaturanga. Always hold it a second, and then upward facing dog, through a child's pose, into the lovely downward facing dog. Step the left leg forward, placing the right knee down on the floor. You can always pat it if you need to. Have your hands on your hips or lift them up all the way. Breathe. And then come into a side stretch over to the left. And placing your hands onto the floor, step back, plank, move through chaturanga, always hold it here for a second, upward facing dog, through child's pose, into a downward facing dog. Breathe. Breathe. Find lots of length in your back. Looking forward, step forward with the right leg. Lift up your arms, low lunge. We're going to flow faster through now. Plank, through chaturanga, upward facing dog, through child's pose, into a downward facing dog. Immediately, left leg forward, arms stay on your hips or up to the sky, placing your hands down on the floor. Move through plank, chaturanga, upward facing dog, through child pose, into a downward facing dog. Breathe. We're going to keep on flowing in a minute, just for you to be prepared. But take rest now. Look forward, placing your weight into your hands, straight back, forward fold. Come into chair pose, deep chair pose. Lift up your arms and Tadasana, stand up. Again, chair pose. And come into the forward fold. Preparation pose. Step back into plank. Move through chaturanga. Upward facing dog. Directly into a downward facing dog. Step forward with your right leg. This time, warrior one, arms up towards the sky or leave them on your hips. Stay here and breathe. The first round, we're always taking a little time. And then step back, plank, move through chaturanga, upward facing dog into a downward facing dog. We're going to keep on going. Left leg forward, warrior one. Have your hands on your hips or towards the sky. Look at your thumbs. Breathe. Lift up your chest. And placing your hands down the floor, step back, plank, move to chaturanga, upward facing dog, into a child's pose, and then into a downward facing dog. You can always replace the chaturangas if you're getting tired with a quick child's pose in between. Step forward with the right leg. Come into warrior one. Placing your hands down. Move through chaturanga. Upward facing dog. Into a downward facing dog. Left leg forward. Warrior one. Placing the hands onto the floor. Plank, move through chaturanga, upward facing dog, into a child's pose, and then into a downward facing dog. Find rest. It's not going to be for long. Put your weight all into your arms. Step forward, lengthening your back, and then forward fold. Come into chair pose, deep chair, arms towards the sky, and lift up, Tadasana. Breathe. Let's continue. Chair pose, arms towards the sky, and then forward fold. Preparation pose, and step back, plank. Chaturanga, upward facing dog, into a downward facing dog. Step the right leg forward, warrior one. Lift up your arms. Breathe, stay here. Have your arms in front of your chest and move forward into warrior three. So lift your back leg up. Try to keep your hips as leveled as you can. You can always place your fingertips on the floor as well. And then shoot back your leg and come into warrior two. Breathe. Come into a peaceful warrior, nice side body stretch. And then come into a side angle pose, placing your right arm onto your thigh and your left arm right by your ear. Try to have as straight of a line with your left leg all the way to the fingertips of the left hand. You can look up, you can look down, all's good. And then come into a high lunge, having your arms up towards the sky and hands towards the floor, and chaturanga. Upward facing dog into a downward facing dog. We're going to repeat the same thing on the left side. So step forward, warrior one. Stay in the pose. Later on we're going to speed this up. So now take your time and breathe. Hands in front of your chest or into the floor and come into warrior three. Try to keep your hips leveled, and it's okay that you're shaking because it's a balancing pose, and that doesn't mean it's stiff. Let your back leg drop down and come into warrior two as gracefully as you can. Breathe here in your warrior two pose, and then come into peaceful warrior, nice side body stretch. And then placing your left arm onto the thigh and come into a side body angle stretch. And you can look up, you can look down, you can have a neutral neck, whatever feels good to you. Keep your right arm by your ear. And then move into a high lunge, arms up, or keep them on your hips. And then come out of the pose, placing your hands onto the floor. Move through another chaturanga, upward facing dog, into it through a child's pose, and into a downward facing dog. You can always skip the chaturangas whenever you need to. Come directly into a downward facing dog or into a child's pose in between. Look forward. Step your right leg forward, warrior one, having your arms up, and then move straight into warrior three. We're flowing now. Now drop that left leg back into a warrior two pose. Side body stretch and side angle stretch. Just the same movements as we have just done now. Come into a high lunge, placing the hands on the floor, step back, move to chaturanga, upward facing dog, into a downward facing dog. We're going to repeat the same thing on the left side. Step forward, warrior one. Next is warrior three. You can always have the fingertips on the floor. The right leg moves back into warrior two as gracefully as you can. Side stretch, peaceful warrior, and then side angle stretch. Come into a high lunge, lift up your arms, and place your hands on the floor. Move through another chaturanga, upward facing dog, into a downward facing dog. Breathe. Find a calming state of mind, of body, and of breath. Look forward, placing all the weight onto your hands, and then preparation pose, forward fold. Bend your knees, chair pose. Lots of strength and grounding onto the feet. And then Tadasana. Let's continue. We're not done yet. Inhale. Chair pose. I almost forgot. And then move into a forward fold. Preparation pose. Step back. Plank. Move to Chaturanga. Upward facing dog. Into a downward facing dog. Right leg steps forward, warrior 1. Right into warrior 3. You know the drill. Back into warrior 2. Peaceful warrior. Side angle stretch. Into a high lunge. Placing the hands on the floor. Move through a chaturanga or skip it. Upward facing dog into a downward facing dog. And you know what's coming, the left side. Left leg moves forward, warrior 1. Into warrior 3. Nice balancing pose. Into warrior 2. Peaceful warrior. Side angle stretch. High lunge. And hands to the floor. And you might be wobbling around. It's okay. Upward facing dog into a downward facing dog. Finding slowness and deep breaths again. Try to find lots of length in your back. Now, place all the weight into your hands again. Step forward and forward fold. Chair pose. Lift up your arms and hands towards the side. Take a deep breath and we're going to continue. Chair pose. Deep chair. Hands up. Stay here. Breathe. Hands in front of your heart. Come lower and come into a seated position, maybe without the hands. You know, boat pose, Navasana. Either the knees bend or straight. Lots of strength from the core. Don't let the hip flexors work all the way. Use your core muscles. Placing the feet on the floor and come into a twist to the right side. Try to keep your spine really, really straight. The twist comes above the navel. The neck is not doing that much, so you can always keep it neutral. Come out of the pose into the other side stretch. And then let's come into another Navasana. Knees bent or straight. Try to use the strength of your abs, of your core. And then let's come into the twist onto the left side. On every inhale, you move, grow a little taller, and every exhale, relax into the twist. Counter twist. Come to the middle and let's take another Navasana. I don't like Navasana. It's really not my favorite pose. It's still good for me. Breathe. And let's place your feet onto the floor. grab your knees underneath your legs and come into a bound forward fold, which is a little bit easier than just a regular forward fold. You can stay here or grab your toes and come into a forward fold that way. Your choice. What always helps me is to draw in your belly and really making room in the pelvic area. Relax, release, come up and maybe get a deeper grip. So maybe this time you grab your toes, or you stay in the pose, or you grab your feet. Slowly come out of the pose and come into a table pose. So lift your hips up all the way. You don't need to drop your head back if it doesn't feel good, but really opening up your chest here. Engage your core. Set yourself down on the floor. Sit up nice and tall and point your toes. And then come into a butterfly pose. Feet together, let them open up a little bit like a book. Grab maybe the toes, wiggle from side to side. And then maybe forward folding, having your elbows onto the inner thighs to help them a little bit open up more. If you don't need that, you can place also your elbows onto the floor. I like to rest my head into my hands just for extra support and I can relax better. Now I'm having my chin onto my thumb. Come out of the pose and open up your right leg towards the side, left leg on the inner. The right arm moves on the inside of the leg and come into a side body stretch. Stay up or try to grab your toe. Try to keep both hip bones on the floor. If you cannot breathe deeply, then you went too far into the pose. Back off. Also, you need to try to keep your shoulder open, not forward too much. Come into the twist over to the left side, keeping your back straight, counter twist, and then come into a forward fold over your right leg. I like to stretch out my toe a little bit, point and flex, and then relax into the nice hip opening and hamstring opening pose. Breathe. Draw on your belly. That means that you make a little bit more room to move forward. Look up, slowly move out of the pose, and just switch sides. So left leg onto the inner thigh, left leg extended, and then come into the twist or grab your toes. Try to keep your shoulder as open as possible, not too much forward. Breathe. Come out of the pose, come into the twist to the right side. Try to keep your back really straight, both hip bones on the floor. Twist to the other side, and then come into the forward fold over the left leg. Maybe point and flex the toe for a minute, and then relax. Look up, come out of the pose, and maybe straighten out both legs. Point, flex your toes. You don't have to have them that open. You can have them in an 80-degree angle or even closer. Have your hands on top, so really lift it up, and then move forward, which you have to engage your core to be able to hold the forward fold. Maybe you can go a lot deeper than I can. This is my maximum, and that's okay. And then I'm going to come into the relaxing stretch. The pose before that was not relaxing, but really core engaging. Come forward onto your elbows, onto the hands. Lay flat on the floor if that feels good for you today. See what you need, what you can do. Relax and breathe. Maybe point and flex your toes a few times. And slowly move out of the pose and come laying onto your back. Windshield wiping the legs from side to side as we did in the beginning of the class. Just releasing and relaxing. Drawing the knees into your chest. Stay here or come into another plow pose. Now you might be able to see the difference between the plow pose at the beginning of the practice and now. And now you might come into a more advanced version where you don't have the hands on the back but interlaced on the floor. Either way, breathing deeply. If that's not good for you, stay in the knees drawn into the chest pose or into a happy baby pose. Have your hands onto the back. We're going to come into another shoulder stand. Again, you can place your hips on the floor and just have them lifted. Have a pillow underneath your hips and just have the feet into the air or against a wall. If the shoulder stand is not good for your neck, don't look to the side, please, in this pose. And just breathe. And then slowly drop your hips onto the floor. And come into Padmasana and then into the fish pose. If that doesn't work for you at all, keep your legs straight as we do in the beginning. Now in this bound pose, I'm holding onto the toes and lifting up my chest into the fish. Engage your core. Don't let go of it so you're not straining your back muscles. This is a beautiful heart opening pose, but do it with care. Placing your head onto the floor again. Windshield wipe one more time, your feet from side to side, relaxing, releasing your muscles. And then let's come into a Shavasana pose. Take up space. I invite you to pray with me. Dear Lord, it is my will to surrender to you everything that I am and everything that I'm striving to be. I open the deepest recesses of my heart and invite your Holy Spirit to dwell inside of me. I offer you my life, heart, mind, body, soul, and spirit. I surrender to you my past, present, and future problems. I ask you to take hold over every aspect of my life. I surrender to you all my hurt, pain, worry, doubt, fear, anxiety, and I ask you to wash me clean. I release everything into your compassionate care. Please speak to me clearly, Lord. Open my ears to hear your voice. Open my heart to commune with you more deeply. I want to feel your loving embrace. Open up the doors that need to be opened and close the doors that need to be closed. Please set my feet upon the straight and narrow road that leads to everlasting life. Amen. Now slowly come back to this present moment. Stretch out your arms and place your knees into your chest one more time, maybe rolling slowly from side to side. Breathing, maybe keeping your eyes closed yet. Taking your time. Maybe you want to roll up or towards the side and come into a seated position. Now, like always, I like to do little rolls with my upper body first in one direction, and then big circles to loosen up all tensions of the hips. Side body stretch, it doesn't matter to which side we start, we do both at the end. Look down, maybe come deeper into side stretch, keeping both hip bones on the floor. Look down and just put your arm down, getting a nice neck stretch here. And then switch sides with your legs and make the circles in the other direction. First, just the chest, isolating the chest, and then making the circles a lot bigger, keeping both hip bones on the floor though. Deep circles. And then side body stretch to the other side. As low as you want to go, but keep your shoulder open. Look down for a stretch of your neck. Come up, but leave your neck in the position for a nice neck stretch. Come to the center, lift up your arms, grow tall. Inhale and exhale. Inhale light. Exhale darkness. One more time. Inhale light. Exhale darkness. Thank you for tuning in. Please like this video and subscribe, and hopefully I see you soon again. God bless you.